Hey everyone, my name is Emma and welcome back to Emma's Story Central, your center for all the best stories on Reddit. I, male 21, am autistic. For the first decade and a bit of my life, I was self-centered, apathetic, and completely lacked any sort of social skills. Until I got to high school. These two boys, I'll call them John and Dave, in my digital class seemed to tolerate me. They were funny and they found me funny. They were friends with a guy in my form class, Steve, and from there I found myself accepted into the group pretty quickly. I branched out as a person. I finally learned to talk to people properly. In hindsight, year 10 was an iffy year. Steve and John would mock my interest, e.g., I loved the music of Leonard Cohen. He died that year and they took the piss out of how upset I was. Eventually, going into year 11, I learned to take it and just thought it was any old regular banter between a friend group. This is where Pete comes into the picture. Pete was sort of the first friend I ever made, back in middle school. He'd come round to my house and spend the weekend. But, unbeknownst to me at the time, he was using me. He'd hog my Xbox and other such things I can't remember anymore. One time my mom made us both this pristine freaking glass of cocoa. It had whipped cream, marshmallows on top, the whole freaking works. I knew very well that this was just a treat. But Pete wanted me to go and ask my mom for another one. So I did, and right then and there she saw straight freaking through that cunt like he was a pane of triple glazed glass. She knew I'd never be so daring to ask for something like that, and so later on in the evening she came into the room to check up on us. Pete was on the Xbox. My mom very gently told him that, it's my Xbox too, and I probably wouldn't mind a go on it. The next day, I went up to Pete, and the first thing he said to me was, "Go away, Kev, nobody likes you." That was it. He didn't want anything to do with me from then on. He bullied me for the rest of my time at middle school. Back to year 11, and Pete's in my history class for the year. Says it's time to call it quits. Well, we're like two peas in a freaking pod from then on. My parents, somewhat unsurprisingly, will only let him stay for one night now, if even that. Pete gets me into smoking weed. Then year 12 comes along, and the whole posse is now a group of stoners. If weed isn't involved, we don't go out to see each other. Later on in the year, Pete steals some oxycodone from his granddad's cancer-riddled partner right before she died. The same granddad he claimed to love like a dad. We got kicked out of another mate's house for being too loud, and so we sat in my car for the rest of the night, bricked up on oxys and buds. Since Pete only listens to mumble rap, I'm showing him some of my all-time favorite songs. Dire Straits, Godspeed You. Black Emperor, the song Maggot Brain, Tool, as much music as I can cram into a single night. Well, this night was the turning point. I'd been playing guitar for 2 years up until this time, and it was this night that Pete decided we should make music. According to him, we'd use my instrumental skills, combine them with his rap production skills, or lack thereof. He thought that'd be something easy to pick up, and we'd be famous in no time. Of course, in hindsight, his actual plan was to get me to do all the work and then slap his name on it. We moved in with his granddad the following year, and he claimed he wanted to learn the bass. Wouldn't stop talking for freaking months about how good of a bass player he wanted to become. I get a 6-string Ibanez bass for Christmas, and he never picks it up. All the bass talk goes out the window. It was the keyboard now. Of course, the exact same thing happened then, only I paid for the keyboard myself. We lived with his granddad for a year, right up until he died. I moved back in with my parents, and by this time Pete had influenced me and changed me so much that my relationship with them was pretty much ruined. For example, Pete found a box of my mom's old VHS tapes. She has an extremely rare tape of Song of the South. Pete runs his Google numbers, and he has $signs in his eyes. That cunt influenced me to sell, and attempt to sell, so much of my parents' belongings for his own gain. My mom still has her videos, thank God, but other things like some of my dad's cassettes weren't as lucky. Anyway, because of this, living with them this time around was a lot harder. I didn't understand why then. I certainly do now. Anyway, from 2020 to 2021 nothing much really happened. We both went from job to job, although I'd be staying at mine for a lot longer than he would. He'd have a job for 3 months, quit, then be unemployed for 9. We were trying to save up for our own place together because we absolutely freaking needed to, otherwise the whole music plan wouldn't work out. The same reason we had to spend thousands on actual professional recording equipment that we don't know how to use, I guess. 2022 rolls around. Pete's living at John's parents', which was only supposed to be for 6 weeks while he found another rental, working as a healthcare assistant, and I meet a woman. From the get-go, Pete was trying to convince me not to go and see her. But I did. For the first month or so, I'd have to drive 2 hours up north to see her. It was worth every second. We made it official after less than 3 weeks of seeing each other in person. In a pretty risky move at the time, she moved in with me at my parents' after a month of dating. Since they were so used to Pete and his behavior, they were pretty hard on us at first. But they warmed up to her quickly in a flash. Now the ball's really rolling for a house. My girlfriend and I would be looking at houses every day, sending them to Pete. There was always something wrong with them. Too dodgy. Oh no, that's on a main road. My cat's not very smart when it comes to cars, even though his granddad's house was on a main road and the cat was fine. It doesn't even take a week before my GF is sick of his shot, and we pretty quickly agree that we're better off just moving in on our own. It took me a couple weeks after that to pluck up the courage to tell Pete. I knew he wouldn't like it. Once the time came around, he blew up like a little kid, saying I'm jeopardizing the music, etc. We didn't speak for a month after that. During that month, I finally realized how much his presence has poisoned my life. So I blocked him. He was quick to text me, telling me let's just please talk this out. I don't want to lose you as a friend. Once I explained why I blocked him, he went from that mentality to actually maybe it is a good idea we're not friends anymore. All of that shot is both of our faults in literally the blink of an eye. He did the rest of the work for me. Blocked my number, blocked me on Instagram, even blocked me on freaking Spotify. The only thing he left out was Discord. From here on out, the only person in the group I was seeing was Dave, and he was quite vocal about how poor Pete's fees got hurt. After Dave failed to pay us back $110 even after asking him multiple times, my GF and I stopped talking to him. There were 4 months of silence. 4 months, until Pete sent a message to the Discord that he'll probably regret for the rest of his life if he has even a milligram of self-awareness. Somebody sent a video of a woman drinking canola oil straight out of the bottle, and Pete chimes in with POV, Kev's missus. My girlfriend is a big woman. She's dealt with shots like that her whole life, so I was seeing freaking red. One detail I've left out of this story, for good reason, is that Pete would send photos and videos of one of his clients to the Snapchat group. Now, that alone could get him fired. But it gets worse. The client in question is disabled, both physically and mentally, and completely nonverbal. And this ape would send photos of him on the toilet, videos of him blowing vape smoke in his face, pretty much just documenting his elder abuse. I saved the videos at the time, but didn't do anything because I was terrified of what he'd do to me. Despite his hyping up of his own physique, I was gifted with the body of Hercules. As my girlfriend puts it, it's more like Socrates. I'm the only person he's ever put his hands on. But now was the time. I didn't give a frick anymore. I emailed his work, and I sent them everything. Showed the cops too. He was fired on the spot. No pay, nothing. He tried to run away to his dad's house 3 hours away. But the dumbass forgets that I've met his dad. I've been there before. So I go into my Google Maps timeline and give the police the information they need. Week after that, he's back at John's parents', where his car has sat ever since. God knows what the frick he's told them for them to let him keep living there. Out of 11 people in that group chat, only one still has me added. I got a message from Steve on New Year's Day. Fuck, I'd hate to be you, you soft cunt. You dogged Pete for that fat gross bitch. I just sent him a shrugging shoulder emoji. After another couple messages from him along the lines of die cunt, I asked him WTF has Pete told all of you anyway? I haven't received a response. But here I am, coming up to a year with the love of my life now, in our own place, with a steady dual income. We see my parents every week now. Pete's still got no job, John's still being cheated on by his girlfriend who he refuses to leave, and Dave's gone from welding apprentice to supermarket shelf stacker. I realize now how much of a bunch of losers they really are, and I remind my girlfriend every day that I made the best decision of my life to stick up for her and stick by her. Not an idiot. The only thing I'm sad about is how long it took you to figure out how big of a cunt Pete was. I also work with developmentally disabled adults, and if I saw someone doing that to someone, I'd probably break knuckles on his face. You absolutely did the right thing. Fuckers like that should not be allowed near vulnerable people. Glad to hear you're living a normal, healthy adult life. It only gets better. Everyone sucks here. Boy, you are a bit of a vindictive baby, aren't you? Pete didn't put a gun to your head for any of your choices. I'll bet you're plenty capable of selling your parents' shot with no influence. He's a right piece of shot, just for different reasons than you. Don't make enemies. Kid, you ain't smart enough for M. Everyone sucks here. Pete and your old friends are shitty people. Good that you are away from them and your girlfriend seems like a good person, but this definitely comes off as it's not my fault, my life is shit. You still made the decisions you made, no one else.